If you have your Bibles, you can turn with me to the book of Job. That's really okay if you need a table of contents or maybe you're using an app, a book you might not be too familiar with. You may have heard that expression, oh, you have the patience of Job. Job is a real life person who had a lot of things happen to him. A good book to read. It's part of wisdom literature in terms of wisdom on how to suffer. But if you haven't read Job in a while, I can take a look at that. We'll be looking at Job chapter 1, verse 12 in a moment. Job chapter 1, verse 12 will start. And you'll see the title of our message today, and those you might used to our series, The Three Enemies of the Christian. The Three Enemies of the Christian. Today is the devil, part 2. And so again, we're continuing this series we talked about in World War II. The United States faced these three enemies. And geez, I'm drawing a blank on who they were. What was it? Japan, Germany, and Italy, right? It's that Italy one that throws me off. So just like the United States in World War II had primarily these three main enemies, Germany, Japan, and Italy. Likewise, every believer has three enemies. We said those three nations of World War II were known as the Axis power. The Axis powers, if you would, of the believer are, and this is what we looked at initially, three enemies are the world. And just to quickly review, in case you're like me, here I come up with the sermons and I couldn't tell you what we talked about last week, let alone several weeks ago. In case you're like me and you were here, but you forgot, or maybe you weren't able to catch this first one, just briefly, the first enemy of the believer is the world. And by the world, the Bible does not mean the world of people, right? So it's not the world of people. That word world in the New Testament was originally written in Greek, and then translated into English and Spanish and Portuguese, whatever. But that Greek word cosmos, sure, it's the same word for world, but it means an organized system. Right? So this world, the planet you live on, is an organized system, again, created by God. The universe, really, the word cosmos speaks to the whole universe. But the world, we saw tons of verses that talk about it. The world that's the enemy of the believer is this. And you can, any kind of variation of this definition. The world is the system of beliefs, philosophies, values, sayings, the bumper sticker, the t-shirt. It's this system of beliefs, values, and statement that are in opposition to God's word and God and empowered by Satan. Just driving up here, I was listening to a song. The line in the song was, money makes the world go round, so get more of it. So that's this world system. It's in contrary to what God says about be content and not to pursue or chase after money. That song lyric and that whole saying of, and I shared that when we talked to that, I remember meeting a man who said that, well, money, the money you have as a man is the measurement of a man. That's this world system that you're a real man based on how much money you have. Well, Jesus was homeless, but he was the ultimate man, right? So no, this world system, Satan knows, like in 1 Timothy, that those who chase after or hunt after money pierce themselves through with many sorrows and hurtful lusts that drown men in sin and perdition, right? So Satan knows that, yeah, if I can get people to buy into this world's thinking, that all it is, it's about money, how much you make. If you're not wealthy, if you don't have 2 homes and a boat, then you're a loser. That's all part of this world system. This world system, those people are all lazy and cheats. So it's this world system that makes us think that a certain ethnic group, people group, or if you look a certain way, all those people are fill in the blank. That's this world system. Next enemy is the flesh. The flesh speaks to all humans' sinful nature. Your godly great-grandmother that never missed church, was here every Sunday, plus the midweek service, volunteered for everything. Your godly great-grandmother, your pastor, Mother Teresa, the Pope, every human being has what the Bible calls the flesh. What's the flesh? Not your physical skin. So based on the verse, it could refer to that, but it's talking about our sinful nature. Every human being who's born has an insatiable capacity and desire to want to live a life independent of God and others. We looked at some passages that talks about sins of the flesh. Always at the top of the list when we talk about sins of the flesh are the various sexual sins. A lot of people who are not familiar with the Bible, they just stop there. Oh yeah, sins of the flesh, adultery, orgies, other the different sexuals and bestiality, hurting a kid sexually. Well, yes, but a little further on the list that we don't talk about so much, anger, bitterness, sowing discord. One of the Greek words literally means to separate people into groups, to cause a fight or cause stir. So gossip is a sin of the flesh. So again, the flesh is that insatiable desire within each one of us to want to live a life independent of God and others. Right? It's usually at the heart of the sins of the flesh. It's me. I want this. She was hot. I forced myself on her, or drunkenness, sins of the flesh. And then now, lastly, we're looking at that third enemy, the devil. Looking at the devil. This is our second Sunday looking at the third enemy, the devil. Hopefully what might be informative to some of us is not all of the, notice there's two other enemies. That's what I'm saying. In short, it's easy to think, the devil, and if I may have asked some of us before this series, who are the three enemies of the devil? Or, I'm sorry, who's the three enemies of the believer? Three? Well, there's only one. It's the devil. So hopefully this series has been good to know that we'll know this world system, the flesh, and then, of course, the one who's behind all of it all, the devil. Three enemies of the believer. Again, today we're looking at Satan. What we looked at last week, and we won't spend time reviewing, was Satan's origins. We looked at Satan's origins really quick. He is created. We looked at the verse, and it was at Ezekiel and Isaiah. So one of the verses mentioned that, it's not in particular order, Satan was created by God. So I'm not saying anyone here, but a lot of times I talk to people or even believers, they talk as if Satan is like equal to with God, that he's just as powerful, and almost speak of him as if he's like, again, in the same language of God, that he's all knowing, that he's all powerful. Satan was created. We saw that he was created as an angel. I remember once someone thinking, and it makes sense, so I don't judge someone. You would think, I think there's a mentality out there that, well, God is the superhero, and every superhero needs a villain, so Satan is that villain. A lot of us may not know that, well, Satan originally was born an angel. We saw the verse. It said he was upright. And so initially Lucifer was upright and righteous. But then, of course, pride filled his heart. And we saw the two passages where he's like, look, I want to be God. I want people to worship me. So pride was his downfall. So he was a high-ranking angel, probably involved with the creation of music in some kind of way, most likely. Beautiful, high-ranking angel, created. So his origins. But then now today we're looking at his powers and tactics. And I'll tell you right now, we're just looking at his powers. I wanted to do them both, but we'll look at tactics next week. So today, so Satan's origins, today Satan's powers, next week, and tactics. And then lastly, we'll close with a very practical Satan's weakness. His weakness. Yes, he's an enemy, but like all enemies, there's a way to defeat him. We'll look at that at the end. So today, Satan's powers and tactics, but immediately just looking at his powers. Satan's powers, and this is all from Job. The first power we're going to look at of the devil is the power to influence people to action. Right? The first power that might be a shock or surprise to some of us is the power to influence people to action. We're going to see this in Job chapter 1, verse 12, B, the second part of the verse. Job 1:12, and then 14, 15, and 17. So if you're taking notes, Job 1:12, 14, 15, and 17, the power to influence people to action. Some of us might be a little uncomfortable with the idea that, and please hear me loud and clear, every human being has a free will. God created you for free will. The whole reason why Adam was created, the whole reason why you're created is to have a free will, to interact with him, to talk to him. Dear Lord, you will help the Bills win tonight, keep Josh Allen upright. So he created you with a free will to talk with him. We're not just robots. So the Bible clearly makes it clear that he made us, powerful beings, higher than the angels. We all have free will. A lot of us are comfortable with that. We're not so comfortable with B. Sometimes the Bible shows where God, who's the creator and sovereign over everything, will override human free will to get what his wills or purposes are. So some of us may choke on the fact that God has chosen at times Pharaoh, Joseph, the life of Joseph. A lot of times God is making people look favorably on Joseph. So throughout the Bible, we see times where God overrides free will to accomplish his will. Some of us choke on the fact that God has the power and right and ability to overcome free will. Likewise, Satan here, as we're going to see in this verse, had the ability to influence people to action, to just override someone's free will or give these two groups of people the ideal to do what they're going to do. Here it is. The power to influence people to action. Job chapter 1:12. So just for context, and you may be familiar with this. So the angels are coming before God. Satan comes with the angels. They're presenting themselves before God. And again, this is true. It's not a make-believe. It's a literal thing that happened. There's a historical time when this happened. So the angels are before God. Satan is with them. God says, hey, have you considered my man Job? He's righteous. He's upright in every way. So that's the context. Satan is talking with God about this very real person named Job. Then Satan left the Lord and went on his way. This is Job 1:12. Okay, so here's the context, well, I don't want to get away ahead of myself, but here we're going to see how Satan was behind the actions or influence of two different people groups. So here's Job 1:14, Job 1:14, 15, and 17. Job 1:14. During that time, a messenger came to Job. He said, Job, 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 the oxen were plowing, the donkeys were eating grass near them. Verse 15. Then the Sabians, so people group, the Sabians attacked us and carried off the animals. They killed some of the servants with their sword. Right? So again, remember the context, what you don't see there, but if you get back up in Job 1, is God was telling Satan, or Satan was like, man, Satan in essence was saying, hey, you know what, God, Job is faithful to you because you hooking him up. As the young people say, you protect him, you've made him the wealthiest man on the planet. If you stripped all that out of the way, Job would curse you right into his face. And so that's the context. So God allowed Satan to be able to Satan was basically, look, I'll show you. If you strip everything away from this man, he's not going to be faithful and loyal to you. So here's Satan beginning this attack of stripping everything away from Job. So we see here Satan caused the Sabians to attack, carried off animals. Here's verse 15. They killed some of the servants with their sword. Later on, here's verse 17, right? So Satan was behind this Sabians, this group of people, we don't know how many, was it hundreds, thousands, that invaded Job's ranch, in essence, we will say a ranch, and took away his animals and killed some of his servants. Verse 17, while he was still speaking, a third messenger, later on in the chapter, came and said, the Chaldeans, so a different group. So the Sabians, Satan motivated, gave the Chaldeans the bright idea to attack Job, taking away his animals, killing some of his servants. And now later, the Chaldeans separated themselves into three groups. I'm in verse 17. They attacked your camels and carried them off. They killed the rest of the servants with their swords. I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. So here, the power of Satan to influence people to action. Here we have scriptural evidence to show that Satan worked in the lives of these Sabian people to attack Job, to carry off animals, kill some of his servants. Later on, Satan was behind the evil actions of the Chaldeans, another ethnic group that again attacked Job, taking some of his animals, killing his servants. Here's the application. Satan orchestrated people to harm Job's family, his employees, to put it in modern day thing, so these workers, you can picture your colleagues, or if you have people that work under you. Satan orchestrated people to harm Job's family, his employees, his animals, or pets. Do you have people negatively affecting you, your family, your coworkers, your pets? Right? So again, later I'm going to tell you the comfort of what God tells us, the practical application of, what does that mean to me to know? What does it mean to me to know now that Satan has the ability to move in the lives of people, to do actions that harm God's people? Job was God's people. But the first question is to set it up is, do you have people in your lives that are causing harm to you, to your family? Maybe it's a team of coworkers, or maybe you can say, hey, I can relate to this. I got these two coworkers. They've just teamed up together, and they're always, talking bad about me. They, take my stuff out of the break room refrigerator. Right? You might have some coworkers on the line with you at the factory that seem to be out to get you. Maybe it's neighbors that keep, messing with your animals or something. Do you have people who are acting to get you? There's a chance, or no chance to it, I would likely posit that if it's people doing bad actions, it could be at the hands of the devil the way Satan worked in the lives of these Sabians and these Chaldeans. Number two, practical application of knowing that Satan has the power to influence people to do bad things, to hurt others, the Sabians and Chaldeans. Another point of application is it could be that Satan may be behind the movement of nations that mobilize to attack other nations. Elfie shared that prayer request with the world, the wars and stuff going on. And I don't have an exact verse that says Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, or any of the other invasions, Putin now with Ukraine. I don't have an exact verse, but it could be, especially on a large strategic level, when you got thousands and tens of thousands of lives lost, it could be said that we'll find out one day that it was Satan that was behind the movement of nations when they attack other nations, particularly when it's innocent. It's not like it's unfounded or unjust war. We may find one day when the Lord returns that it's Satan that's behind the movement of nations that cause harm, destruction, and death to other nations. Again, especially something on a big strategic level. Where do you get that from, Dorian? Well, if Satan can move the Sabians and Chaldeans to attack Job, he can certainly move other nations today, not the Chaldeans, but fill in the blank. Nazi Germany, today's Russia. So we see here that Satan has the power to influence people to action. We're going to see some comfort at the end of the message of, well, what's the comfort in that? We'll see that in a second. Number two, the second power we see from Satan in the book of Job is Satan has the power to influence weather events. That might be a surprise. Only God controls the weather. What are you talking about? Or some of us say, well, God doesn't even control the weather. Weather's just this thing. It is that it is. The ocean interacts with the air and the sun, and that's how we get the weather. Well, Job, how funny, the book of Job, later in Job, God makes a lot of claims about he is the one who controls the weather. But we see that Satan has the power to influence weather events. You'll see this now in Job chapter 1, verse 16, 18, and 19. Here's Job 1:16. While he, I believe it was this messenger, while he was still speaking, a second messenger came. He said, Job, God sent lightning from the sky. It struck the sheep and killed them. It burnt up some of the servants. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you. Job 1:16, right? This messenger says, God, we know from the context, it was Satan stripping away Job's wealth. Satan caused lightning to strike, that struck these sheep and also killed some servants that were minding the sheep. Job 1:18 and 19. Job 1:18 and 19. While he, this messenger, was still speaking, a fourth messenger came. He said, Job, are you sitting down? You might want to sit down. Your sons and daughters were at their older brother's house. They were enjoying good food and drinking wine, Job. Verse 19, Job, suddenly a strong wind blew in from the desert. It struck the four corners of the house, Job. The house fell down on your children. Now all of them are dead. I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. Satan caused lightning to strike, killing sheep and servants. Satan caused wind to blow out of the desert, striking the house that Job's kids were in. Right? The devil has the power to influence weather events. Have you ever heard someone ask, why did God make it rain on my wedding day? The bulk of my young adult life as a pastor to singles. And so I remember many a times, couples that met in the singles group I led, who would then later get married, and sure enough, not all the time, but once in a while you'll get where rain would happen. So a lot of times they'll be like, why did God allow it to rain on my wedding day? We invested thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in this wedding, and God allowed it to rain. And we'll see something here in a second. So the short of it is that Satan can impact weather events. Speaking of wedding days and rain, rain on your wedding day, speaking of wedding days, a newlywed cowboy rides home with his bride on his horse. On the way back to his ranch, the horse stumbles, nearly throwing off the two riders. The cowboy calmly waits for the horse to get up and says nothing except, very calmly, one. Further down the way, the horse stumbles again on a pile of dirt and rocks that was in the middle of the road. And again, without being fazed in any way, the cowboy lets the horse get up and without a word except the calm two. As the sun goes down over the prairie, they near the ranch. The horse stumbles over a root, making it the third time. Calmly, the cowboy says, 3. The cowboy gets off the horse, helps his bride off the horse, takes his gun out, and shoots the horse. His bride is shocked. How could you? You monster! This poor horse carried us all the way here, and you shoot it in cold blood. Had I known this, I would have never married you. 1. Poor cowboy starting to count on the wife. So how oftentimes is it that we blame God for the rain on the loved one's wedding days? I remember that. It didn't happen that much, but I remember couples from the singles group that I'm still in touch with even after married. I spent all this money. It was going to be outdoor at this, park, and we had everything planned, and it just thundered. Why would God do that to me? Or more seriously than a wedding day is oftentimes I hear people, even news, that God, where was God? Why would God cause a hurricane, a more serious health weather event, a hurricane or tornado that strikes in the Midwest? It's easy for those who may not know the Lord and may not be familiar with this teaching here that, Satan has the power to influence the weather. We were not going to look at it in this series, but I know study in itself is the different titles for Satan. One of them is the God of this world, the prince of the power of the air, that speaks to the fact that, yes, God is still sovereign over the world, but in some ways, Satan does have power. We saw in Job here, he controlled lightning and the west wind. The point here is that Satan could be the cause of these horrific tornadoes and hurricanes and other weather events. Satan has the power to influence people to action, the Chaldeans and the Sabians. Satan has the power to influence weather. He caused lightning to strike and a strong wind to blow. Number 3, Satan has the power to make people think bad things come from God. And really, I'm kind of cheating. Really, Father is more under his tactics, which is next week. But just know that Satan does have the power, a tactic, to make people think bad things come from God. Again, it's really getting, I'll shut up right now. I was going to get ahead of way to tactics that Satan uses. Here's Job 1:16, speaking of the power to make people think that bad things come from God. Job 1:16, one of the messengers, said to Job, God sent lightning from the sky. God sent lightning from the sky. It struck the sheep and killed them. It burned up some of the servants. But we know for a fact that it wasn't God that caused that lightning to strike, right? Satan has the power to make people think bad things, the death of these sheep and these servants. Satan has the power to make people think bad things come from God. It was not God who did it. It was Satan who caused that lightning to strike, because, as we see here, Satan has the ability to affect weather events. This gets into Satan's tactics again, but again, he mistakenly thought that God sent the lightning, but really it was Satan who, again, was stripping away things from Job with the thought, incorrectly, as you know from the book of Job, that he would just curse God. Number 4, the last power is the power to affect a person's health. Power to affect a person's health. Job chapter 2, verse 6 and 7. So for context, again, so obviously it didn't work, or not so obviously if you're not familiar with the book of Job. So again, remember Satan says, God, Job is only loyal to you because he's the Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos combined on steroids of his day. Job is wealthy, and yes, he loves you, and yes, he eschews evil. Yeah, he avoids evil. Satan, the accuser, what that names mean, is saying, God, if you just stripped away all of his wealth, he's going to curse you. Chapter 1 didn't work, right? So he's, his children are gone, servants are gone, his animals, his means of working are all gone. So now Satan kicks it up a notch in chapter 2 and is like, okay, I got it. Okay, I was wrong on this one, God. But here it is. Everyone loves you when they're healthy. So yeah, we took away his Mercedes-Benz, his ability to make wealth. But man, if you, God, just took away his good health, then Satan's going to curse you and die. So that's the context of chapter 2. Here's Satan affecting a person's health. Job 2, verse 6, the Lord said to Satan, all right, I am handing him over to you, but you must spare his life. Then Satan left the Lord and went on his way. Satan sent painful sores on Job. They covered him from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. Right? Satan has the ability to affect a person's health. Where do you get that from? Job 2, right? It was Satan, not God, who caused these sores, painful sores, to be covering Job's body, the power to affect a person's health. Here's the thing, to wrap it up, here's the comfort regarding Satan's power. We're going to see his weaknesses later, tactics next week, but a weakness. But here's a comfort to know in regards to Satan's power. Number one, it's just two things. The first, Satan needs permission from God to do anything to God's people. Satan needs permission from God to do anything to God's people. So that's a comfort to know that this powerful angel, who we just saw, can move people to actions, can affect the weather. What else? We looked at affects the weather, can affect someone's health. That same being needs permission from a sovereign God who loves you and knows you before Satan could ever do anything to touch you. Here's Job 1:12. Job 1:12. The Lord said to Satan, all right, it's God who's in control. All right, I am handing everything he has over to you, but do not touch the man himself. So God is setting the parameters of this thing. It's God who's sovereign over the nations and you. Job 2:6. Job chapter 2, verse 6. The Lord said to Satan, all right, I am handing him over to you, but you must spare his life. Notice how God puts the parameters. Here, you can do everything, but don't touch him. Here's the second time, okay, you can do anything you want to his health, but don't kill him. It's a comfort to know that Satan, though powerful, still needs permission. Right? Satan is not willy-nilly affecting your family, your co-workers, if you own a business, your employees, the way the servants were to Job. It's a comfort to know that Satan, though powerful, as we saw, is not just running free to affect you and your loved ones. He needs permission to touch a child of God. God, in his infinite knowledge and love of you, sets parameter. In both cases, it was God who was like, okay, yeah. And now for you practically, this hardship in your life, this challenges in your life that's from Satan, not from God, be comforted to know that just like with Job, God sets parameter. The first one, but don't touch him. The second one, okay, you can mess with his health, but don't kill him. When Satan attacks us, when the enemy of our souls, attacks us, you can rest assured that it's God who's allowing it, but God in his infinite wisdom and love for you is saying, okay, Satan, but don't go here. You can't do this. That segues to number two, the last comfort. God's sovereignty over Satan, as powerful he is, God's ability to restrict, and when you do that to Mildred, you can't do this, you can't do this, here's the stipulations. It segues to a verse that's beloved by many and a concept in scripture that I hope is an encouragement to you if you're under attack by the devil, right? So if there's things going on in your life that maybe I don't know, maybe like, Don, you don't even know. This with my grandkids, this in my family life. You could be here, you're like, I share with you their unspoken requests because I don't want to get into it. But Dorian, Satan is alive and well with this attack, with what's going on in my life. The comfort is, they're married. If you are under attack by Satan, if there's suffering in your life, because right there we know that's of Satan. It has nothing to do with this world system, nothing to do with the flesh. Family life is not the way it is. Financially, you're not where you're supposed to be. Health-wise, we know Satan can affect health, the boils. If that's going on in your life, be comforted today to know that Satan needed permission before he began doing that in your life. The sovereign God who loves you enough that he sent his son to drown in his own blood, to suffocate for you, puts parameter on him. It's that segues to number two, and here it is, the last one if you're taking notes. God won't give us more than we can handle. Right? You may be under attack by the devil. Life may not be what you would like and dream. Loved ones of yours or friends of yours may be suffering. Satan needs permission before he did that. God puts parameters on what Satan can do, which segues to this last point. God won't give you, he will not allow Satan to touch you in a way that you can't handle. Here's the famous verse, and this is the last point. Again, very comforting enough to know, in summary, and I hope it's clear, it's a comfort to know that Pete, Mildred, whatever that is that's in your life, Satan had to get permission. God put parameters on it, so Satan is not just free, willy-nilly wrecking your life and the life of your loved ones and friends. And then that segues into why is it that Satan didn't just of his own, I'm going to jump on Mildred who sits in our front row and wreck her life and her grandkids' lives and her neighbor's life. Nope, he's not free willy-nilly. He needs permission. God puts parameters on what Satan is doing in your life that segues to that permission slip. That parameters is the comfort to know 1 Corinthians 10:13. 1 Corinthians 10:13, a great verse to memorize if you haven't memorized a verse in a while. I know it's somewhat long. Repetition, say it over and over. 1 Corinthians 10:13, the promise that God won't allow Satan to work in your life in a way more than you can handle. 1 Corinthians 10:13, you are tempted or tested, that's tempted to sin, but it's also tempted as in, I got a flat on my way to my interview and I've been out of work for months. So the word can go for both. Tempted as in, I'm struggling financially, I'm a soccer mom and everyone gives me their money and there's no accountability. I could easily take some of that money out of the pot. Tempted to sin, or tempted as in tested. You are tempted in the same way all other human beings are. That's a way of a comfort to know that your situation isn't unique. Satan oftentimes whispers, no one has it like you. This is so horrible. No one goes through this. Don't talk to anyone, right? Satan knows he doesn't want you to fellowship. You can't go to anyone else in the church because they can't understand. God tells us you are tempted in the same way all other human beings are. Here it is. God is faithful. He can be trusted. Take it to the bank. God says, I assure you, I am faithful. You can trust me of this fact. He will not let you be tempted, temptation to sin or temptation under, being tested. He will not let you be tempted any more than you can take. Very comforting to know, right? Satan may get permission to attack you and your loved ones or your family, but God in his infinite wisdom put parameters on it. He knows that he is not letting Satan test you in a way, that hardship that's in your life, that relationship struggle that you're in, the financial hardships you're in, you can rest assured, take it to the bank. God is faithful. Take it to the bank. God will not allow you to be tested above that which you can take. Of course, my response, I was preaching to myself, my response is, well, Lord, you don't know me. I can't take this much longer. You can, right? So it's easy to think, well, Lord, you sure don't know me. You can. He will not allow you to be tested more than you can take. But when you are tempted, when you are tested, when you're tempted to sin, or when you're tested just as in a hardship, but when you are tempted, when Satan gets that permission slip to attack in your life, and yes, God put parameters on it, God will give you a way out. Very comforting to know God will give you a way out. And that's why I can say to you with promise, with hope that yes, there's brighter days are going to come. God may sometimes give you a way out. There's a high likelihood God will give you a way out. No, God will give you a way out. Then you will be able to deal with it. So 1 Corinthians 10:13, an amazing comfort to know as we close. 1 Corinthians 10:13, the promise of God that he's faithful, that he won't allow you to be tested the more that you can. It'll give you a way out, or he's going to answer that prayer request, even though I know it, Don, it's been years, child. It might be years, but God is going to give you a way out. You'll be able to deal with it. It's not unique what you're going through. All of that can be said because Satan needs permission to exert his power in your life, which seeks to cause you suffering and pain. And when God does allow that, that same God who's infinite in his wisdom, loves you more than you love yourself. He loves that loved one you're concerned about more than you love that loved one. We can rest assured that God gave Satan the permission, yes, but he puts parameters on it so that it's not more than you can handle. If you're going through a tough time right now, if you feel like, hey, Dwayne, this spoke to me, Satan is alive and well with my health. Yes, Satan has caused some people to cause action in my life. I got this ex-wife of mine and legally is causing problems, or whatever it is that Satan is using. Please let me know if I could be of an assistance with something from the message. But if there's something going on in your life, utterly unrelated, let me know as well. Again, the power to influence people to action. Satan has the power to influence weather events, to make people think bad things come from God. And Satan has the power to affect people's health. And then again, next week, we'll look at his tactics, his strategies and tactics